Hey best friends, how are y'all doing? I know y'all are getting ready to start school. You've either already started school or you're getting ready to start school. More power to you. But I wanted to share another series of teacher stories. So this is Teacher Stories Part 5. If you're not familiar with parts 1 through 4, I share the stories of teachers from across the country and the things that they have to deal with in their classrooms every day. So this video is by no means me like bashing people or bashing admin or bashing anybody. Me sharing these teacher stories is simply a way to bring awareness to the things that teachers have to deal with in these classrooms every day, because sometimes like people just do not realize like the crazy things that teachers have to deal with. The amount of teachers that have PTSD from being from some of their classroom experiences, the amount of teachers that, you know, have mental health problems because of the stuff that they have to experience. And so I want to use my platform as a way to bring awareness to the things that teachers have to deal with, because when people become aware of these things, then maybe we can start to see some change, or start to put some things in place, you know, once we realize like, hey, that's not really okay that they're having to deal with it. And so, you know, I had somebody one time that was like, oh, you know, I don't like your channel anymore because you're like super negative. And I'm like, you know, I'm not trying to be negative, I'm trying to bring awareness. And the negativity is actually people trying to make teachers feel bad for sharing the things that they experience. So that's the actual like negativity. So again, I'm never gonna stop sharing these teacher stories. I'm never gonna stop speaking up for them, because, you know, a lot of teachers can't say anything about, you know, the experiences that they have because they'll get fired, they'll lose their job. You know, they just can't say anything. So, you know, I hope to be a voice for them and be able to speak out and say like, no, this is what they're dealing with. This was a real situation. And so, you know, if you ever have a story that you want to send to me, you can email it to honestteachervibes@gmail.com. And, you know, let me know like what information I can share, what information you want me to leave out. You know, let me know if I have permission to share it. But I love y'all, and I'm always going to use my platform, you know, to speak out for y'all and the things that y'all have to deal with. So let's get into the first story. So my fiance broke his neck in an accident, and obviously that was a life-altering event for me. I ended up missing 8 days total when he was getting into rehab, and there was a meeting called to discuss whether my excessive absence was professional and if I'm an effective teacher. Why? Like, why? Come on, why? Why? Her fiance just broke his neck. You having a meeting to discuss whether she's an effective teacher? She's the sole caretaker for her fiance who just broke his neck. Prior to this, I had only had one absence in 4 years, so I had the days available. Like, come on. The girl only missed 1 day in 4 years. Her fiance just broke his neck. Y'all having a meeting to discuss whether she's an effective teacher? Like, come on, man, come on. Just because somebody misses school doesn't make them, it doesn't determine whether they're an effective teacher or not. And she wasn't just missing to miss. Her fiance broke his neck. It was seen as poor teamwork with the sub shortage. I was shocked and have never felt less valued as a human being. What does the sub shortage have to do with her being able to take care of her fiance? It's y'all's job to find a substitute teacher. That's not poor teamwork on her part. Who else is supposed to take care of her fiance? She's the only person that can take care of him, and he's getting ready to go into rehab. Like, why? This is the kind of stuff that makes us upset as teachers. Why are y'all making her feel bad because she missed 8 days of work? She missed 1 day in 4 years. She had the time to take. Like, this is the negative thing. Like, this is one of those negatives where it's like nobody directly says anything to you about missing work, but it's like a unwritten rule, or, you know, something like that. Like, oh, you know, your arm better be falling off if you miss work. Like, no, stop making teachers feel bad for missing work when they need to miss. Like, goodness gracious. It was seen as poor teamwork with the sub shortage. I was shocked and have never felt less valued as a human being. I quit 2 weeks later. I'm not surprised.
Why are teachers quitting? I don't understand why teachers are quitting.
Because they don't feel valued. I would feel so devalued as a human being if my fiance broke his neck and the school was like, well, we had a meeting to discuss your teamwork and your effectiveness as a teacher because you've missed too much school. I'm not just sitting at home eating bonbons. I quit 2 weeks later. Thank God it's employment at will in that district, or there would have been a breach of contract / sanctions on my certification on top of it all. And that's one of the things that people don't realize. That's how these teachers that, people are always like,
if teachers don't like their job, they just need to quit, or they just need to move to another district, or they just da-da-da-da-da.
It is not that easy, y'all. They will take some of these people's teacher license if they quit in the middle of the school year. Like, the amount of stuff that teachers have to deal with when they want to quit teaching and transition into something else, or they want to quit teaching and go to a different district. Like, it's not just the people out there that are like, I'm tired of teachers complaining, just quit if you don't like it or what. Y'all, it's not that simple like that. I still teach because I want to, but it goes to show you how much you are valued or not valued based on how much you do. About 3 months into the school year, my school decided to move me into the 3 to 5 year old class, and that's when all hell broke loose for me. The class was a class of 20 3 to 5 year old children. 20 3 to 5 year olds. My daughter's 4, and I cannot imagine being in a classroom with 19 other kids the same age or younger, older than her. This class was a class of 20 3 to 5 year old children, all of which who were behavior kids. And even though my job title was technically teacher assistant, I was frequently left in charge of 10 3 to 5 year old behavior kids who had some of the worst behaviors I've ever seen in my entire life. Not only was it 20 3 to 5 year olds, but 23 to 5 year olds who were specifically in that class for behavior issues. Y'all put 20 of them in the same class with one teacher. And see, here's the thing too about education. The job that you're supposed to do is not always the job that you do, because there's such a teacher shortage, so you get thrown more responsibility and you don't get an increase in pay. There was one child in particular that I was left with out on the playground who was 5 years old, and he refused to come in from outside no matter what I did or said. I tried talking to him, I tried taking him by the hand, I tried bribing him, and everything I could possibly think of to get this kid to come inside. I tried to tell my supervisor about what was going on, and she basically just shrugged at me. That is not okay. Come on. Like, one, why is she out there with a kid by herself? Because I didn't think we could be with kids by ourselves. So that's like a hazard. That's a safety hazard in general. They shouldn't put her in that position. But second of all, she tried to talk to her supervisor and tell her direct superior her concerns ignored. That's one of the things that's really hard for teachers, is when we're seen as clucking hens when we bring a concern or a problem. Like, I'm all for solution-based complaining, and if I bring a problem to you, I want to also try to present a solution. But come on, like, y'all left her out there with that kid on the playground. You knew that the child was difficult. Like, you knew that she needed some help. So then when she said something to you about it, it's like, nah, like, you're good, you can handle it. Wait till you hear the rest of the story, because y'all shouldn't have left her by herself. So I, as a female of small stature, was forced to pick this 50 to 60 pound kid up and carry him from one side of the playground to the other while he was bucking, kicking me, punching me, pinching me, biting me. And finally, once we get to the door, my supervisor has the audacity to stick her head out, reprimand the child, and then turn around and reprimand me for not asking for help. She did ask you for help. She asked you for help. Y'all see that this situation is crazy. Come out here and help her. And like, I know some people are like, well, she shouldn't have picked him up, like da-da-da-da. Y'all try to put yourself in these teachers' shoes and what you would do if you were put in the same situation. Like, what other option? If the kid won't come inside and she has already talked to her supervisor and said, I need help, and she's just shrugged off, like, what else is she supposed to do? So it's like, you're danged if you do, you're danged if you don't. She obviously can't leave the kid outside, like, teachers, this is one of the things that, like, we also need to realize. We can only do so much with the resources that are given to us. Like, sometimes you genuinely are not equipped to do your job. Like, genuinely. That one incident, I tore my rotator cuff in both of my shoulders, and I was covered in bruises for the next week. That same child would regularly say inappropriate and violent things to teachers and students. Here's where I'm at with that. What kind of service are you doing the child to allow them to do things like that? Like, let's get the kid the appropriate services and help that they need to help that particular behavior. Like, this is where we stop and say, like, this is not okay. We need to put better systems and structures in place to protect the teacher and to protect the child. Because a lot of times things are put in place to help protect the child, but there's nothing put in place to protect the teacher. Like, a situation like this is not okay. She was left out there on the playground with that kid by herself. They knew he was a behavior child and that she probably was going to need some extra help out there with him. When she mentioned to her supervisor, like, hey, I need help, that should have been the moment where the supervisor should have either given her help or sent somebody else out there to help her. Like, what else was she supposed to do? She couldn't leave the kid out there by himself. Now, I want you to really listen to this teacher situation and put yourself in her situation, especially if you're a parent or you're somebody that's not a teacher, not in education. Put yourself in this teacher's shoes and like try to think of like, what would I have done in that situation before you judge her for what happened. I was in charge of 10 little kids during free play, and these two 5-year-olds started fist fighting, pulling hair, scratching, biting, the works. So of course I go over and I start to break them up, and no sooner than I broke them up and calmed them down, I hear one of my coworkers say, excuse me, but I just caught this little guy on his way out the building. One of her kids was getting ready to walk out the building. I turned around to see her holding the hand of one of my students, and I was absolutely horrified. This is the teacher that teaches the 3 to 5-year-olds. I was absolutely horrified. My half door was locked, and so while I was breaking up a literal fist fight, this little boy climbed up the half door, reached over, unlocked it from the outside, and let himself out of my classroom. I was fired the next day. As teachers, we keep our head on a swivel, but y'all, we can't see everything. Like, you're breaking up, especially that she was in there by herself. You're breaking up 2 kids fist fighting. Another kid climbs up and unlocks your half door and gets ready to walk out of the building. Now, hear what she said. She said, now I will say that someone needed to be fired for what happened with that little boy. So she's taking responsibility and saying, like, yeah, I understand it's not okay for a 5-year-old to be getting ready to walk out the door. I understand that, but what was her option? She was breaking those 2 kids up from fighting. I completely understand that because it was completely unacceptable for one of my students to get loose and almost leave the building. I've never held a grudge towards them for firing me for that, but as I look back at it, I have found myself very frustrated that I was put in that situation where there was literally nothing else I could do to prevent that from happening. I had told my supervisors that these students were too much for me to handle on my own, and I was just told to improve my classroom management skills. Y'all, a lot of times teachers are told to improve classroom management skills when sometimes it's not classroom management, it's that it's too much on us. No amount of classroom management can manage like a amount of chaos, a certain amount of chaos. Like, it doesn't matter whether you have good classroom management or not. Some things in some situations are just too chaotic. Classroom management is not a catch-all, it's not a fix-all. It doesn't fix everything. And so, you know, again, teachers can't do their jobs if they're not given the necessary resources to do their job. This lady could have done her job. And matter of fact, she did do her job, but she was not given the resources that she needed to do her job effectively, which means she needed another teacher in there. She needed another teacher in there, and she had repeatedly told them that she needed help and that behavior class was too much for her to handle. No help sent, and she was fired. I've been teaching for 26 years. This year I moved to Texas. I was hired for a position in December due to the teacher walking out months before. The school had placed 2 other teachers in the class, and both of those teachers quit. The students had either subs or other classroom teachers covering the class until I arrived. I had a heart attack, 2 stents on New Year's Day, but returned to the class after 2 weeks. Now, before y'all judge her for returning to school 2 weeks after having a heart attack, recognize the pressure that is put on teachers not to miss school. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, I don't care what kind of pressure is put. Like, they're not going to make me go back to school after I just had a heart attack. It's just not that. You know how like you have those like unwritten, unspoken rules at work. Like that's one of the things. Teachers are made to feel bad because there's a teacher shortage. Like, don't miss school. Like, And it's sad because there's some situations where you would be like, hey man, like they ain't got no choice but to miss school, and they need to miss school for longer than like 2 weeks. Like even teachers who have had, you know, babies and have been on maternity leave are made to feel bad sometimes, like if they want to take an extended maternity leave, or they're expected to like lesson plan or send stuff in if they want to do an extended maternity leave. No, if I'm off work, I'm off work. Like, we need to stop making teachers feel bad when they need to take a break just because there's a teacher shortage. Like, teacher shortage shouldn't equal me sacrificing my health to come to work because y'all can't find anybody to work. Maybe let's look at the reason why there's a teacher shortage. Let's look at the reason why there's a sub. I received my formal evaluation in March and was told I had 9 problems with my teaching, but the principal was only going to focus on 3. So he put me on an action plan for 7 weeks with a coach. I found out from the coach that I was supposed to be teaching the method I do, we do, you do every day. Never knew this until now, and I had prior informal evaluations from a coach, vice principal, and principal with nothing said about my teaching. The amount of things that slip through the cracks that teachers are supposed to know that we don't know, like it's like my grandmama used to call it a triple threat. You don't know that you don't know what you don't know. And so, you know, when I first started teaching, the amount of things that I didn't know, and like, honestly, I'm even too embarrassed to say like, oh, I didn't know this and I was supposed to know this. Like, we are not training people, like, because when you come in, everything is chaotic because you don't have enough teachers, you don't have enough resources, you don't have enough of anything. And so you do this like drive-by training of the new people. And I know some people might think like, oh, well, she taught for 26 years. Why does she not know the I do, you do, we do? She might have been teaching it, but not necessarily know that it was called that or whatever. Like, the fact of the matter is, she was supposed to be doing something that was not communicated to her. Then she's reprimanded for something that she didn't even know that she was supposed to be doing. Then I started getting my file papered. I was called to the vice principal's office because a student had carried the top of a desk out of my classroom and I didn't see it. They kept asking me why I didn't see it, and they said they could clearly see it on the camera. They told me that this particular offense was something that I could be fired over. Now, I don't know how to get people to understand this, but us as teachers, again, we can't see everything, y'all. When the kids get ready to like transition to another class, it's like mass chaos. So, you know, we just can't see everything, especially if you have 30 kids in a class. Like, I know you can clearly see it on the camera, but you couldn't see what was going on in my classroom when the kids transition, you know, when the bell rang and the kids transition to get ready to leave class. Like, we can't do everything. We can't see everything. And also, like, that seems like a little like harsh to say like, oh, you could have been fired because a kid carried a desk out of your class. Like, I ain't never heard anything like that. But we can't catch everything. I say that to say it's a lot. 30 kids in a class, because that's most of the time, that's how many kids are in a class. And this teacher wasn't teaching little kids. She was teaching either middle school or high school. But there's a lot going on in these classrooms, y'all. We can't see everything. Before I read this story, I will say this particular story has to do with a teacher feeling unsafe around a student. So I have felt unsafe around a student before, and I have expressed concern to admin about feeling unsafe around a student, and my concerns were downplayed. Like, oh, well, you don't know that that's how they were feeling, or I think you're reading too much into that. Why is our word as professionals not enough? Treat us like professionals. We're professional. You want us to be professional, treat us like professionals. Why? I'm not going to tell you that I feel uncomfortable around a student. I literally told a principal one time, this was a couple of years ago, that a particular student was making me feel uncomfortable. I was pregnant with Peyton at the time. And I was telling them, this particular student makes me feel uncomfortable. Their mannerisms, their behaviors toward me is making me feel uncomfortable. And the principal like literally chuckled and was like, that student? No, he would never do that. Did you hear what I just said? All right, here's the story. A 300-pound IEP student in my classroom was being very aggressive with me and taking over the classroom as he moved around it. I had his teacher aide called to come to get him, and we went into the hallway to discuss the situation, to pretty much say, hey, that behavior, like, you disrupted my class, like, hey, this is not okay. The student kept dancing from foot to foot, punching his fist into his hand as if he wanted to punch me. Now, if somebody, okay, because let's read the context clues. If somebody, like you as an adult, you as a person in general, you can read body language, okay? You can tell if somebody want to swing on you, or if they're just, like you can tell if somebody is tapping from foot to foot and looking like they want to knock you out. Like you're not reading into that. Like what else could you insinuate that the child was wanting to do if he tapping from foot to foot and punching his fist in his hand after he's got in trouble and they had to call his teacher aide? Like, come on, use the context clues. I asked the aide to take him to the office. The aide did not. Later, I was called to the principal's office and interrogated about the situation. I was upset by the action in the classroom and upset by what happened in the hallway, and rightfully so. She has a right. We as teachers, we have a right to feel safe at school. The kids have a right to feel safe at school, but we as teachers, we also have a right to feel safe at school. They told me the camera did not show the aggression that I told them about. Them cameras in schools are from 1972, 1985. Y'all, especially at public school, y'all ain't got no good cameras in them schools. And how are you going to tell me a camera can't pick up on the emotion that is being exhibited right in front of me? Come on. My principal told me they had concerns about me because I told the head of my department about the situation, and she decided to go talk to the principal. The principal stated that it made the office look bad. I was written up for this also. Why? The fact that y'all still are questioning why y'all have a teacher shortage. This situation in itself, like, she deserves to feel safe at school. Why is she getting written up because she expressed a concern to her department head? Like, this is not okay. Like, and how can you be written up for that? Like, I genuinely don't understand. Like, how can you be written up for talking to your department head about a situation that made you feel unsafe or made you feel, uncomfortable at school? I don't understand that. Even before the end of my action plan date, the principal told me that I wasn't going to improve enough, and he had HR come and tell me I was not going to be rehired. I was stressed to the max, but I kept working to finish my contract. However, HR told me that I would have to put termination on future job applications, and that I would be lucky to get another job, and that district would not rehire me. I don't understand how they can put in my file that I was terminated. First of all, I thought if a school didn't renew your contract, I didn't think they could put in your contract that you were terminated. Like, I just thought they didn't renew your contract. Like, why would she have to put terminated on future job applications? I particularly don't understand that part. I finished my contract and they did not offer me one for the upcoming year. I know this principal and HR will tell any potential employers that I'm not rehireable. I am single and 63. I'm really worried because I need to work. Not in education, but even with my master's degree, I can't find a job. When I told HR I had done nothing that was reason for being fired, she stated that the principal only has to note that I don't fit his environment. So now I end my teaching career with a termination because of one man's opinion of me that I couldn't do my job. I can't get another job. I'm so sick about this and even worried my next experience may be the same. Y'all, like, when I read this story all the way through, I literally cried reading this teacher's story. Because, like, what can you do if you feel like your hands are tied? Like, and how are they going to make her put that she was terminated? Like, somebody, even if somebody can explain this to me in the comments, even if there's a principal out there that can explain this to me in the comments, if your contract is not renewed, how can that be that you were terminated or fired? It just means that the school decided not to renew your contract and you can go to another school. Like, I'm not understanding this. But this teacher situation just really makes me so sad, like, honestly. And like, a lot of, I was stressed reading these stories and I wasn't even there experiencing it. Imagine like how stressful it was for the teachers that were there, like, experiencing these particular situations. And I have hundreds of stories like this of teachers being kicked and bit and spat on, parents trying to fight them, admin not listening to their concerns. Like, again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm saying we have a problem. What is the solution? Because the education system we really need to look at why so many teachers are walking away. We really need to look at like what can we do to retain teachers. We do all these trainings, all these professional developments. Can we get a professional development on how to retain teachers and how to support teachers? Because I'm not saying that all admin are bad. That's 100% not true. Because I've had good admin. All admin are not bad. But some of these schools, like, let's think of ways, like, how can you support your teachers? These situations that I just read, like, think about how you would feel if one of these situations happened to you, especially the people that watch these videos that you're not a teacher. Think about how you would feel if one of these situations happened to you. Put yourself in these teachers' shoes and recognize like the emotional and the physical stress of what they're dealing with in schools every day. Like, this is we have like a big, problem on our hands. This stuff is not okay. If you have a story that you want to share, you can send it to honestteachervibes@gmail.com. Again, I'm not saying that I know the answer. I'm not saying I know the solution, but I am saying I want to keep putting these stories out there to bring awareness, because some of y'all stories, like, I have literally wept and cried over y'all stories, because I'm just like, the things that they experience, like, that is not right. Like, I have part 1 and 2 of why I quit teaching on my channel, so you can scroll back and watch that. But the reason I started sharing y'all stories was because a lot of y'all stories mimicked the exact same thing that happened to me when I quit teaching. And so we're not teachers, we're not trying to say, oh, we're martyrs or whatever, but I am trying to bring awareness to that these systems and structures that we have in place, like, some of them, they're not working. They're not working. The kids have a right to feel safe at school, but the teachers also have a right to feel safe at school as well. But I love y'all. Y'all my people. I'm grateful that y'all allow me to be a voice and to be one of the people that shares y'all stories and just kind of brings awareness to what y'all deal with every day. So I love you, besties. I'll see you next time.